It is 6 a.m. in Nairobi, Kenya on this Friday, the 21st of June. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. We're glad you could join us this morning as we delve deep into the intrigues surrounding the controversial Finance Bill 2024 as members of Parliament in the National Assembly yesterday voted to approve the controversial Finance Bill in its second reading amid a countrywide protest against the proposed taxation measures. We'd like to hear from you in this conversation. To speak to us on X at K24 Tv, our SMS feedback line is 21222. The hashtag is New Dawn. What are your thoughts on the current debate as the National Assembly votes to approve the bill in its second reading? 204 members of Parliament voted yes for this bill despite countrywide protests, which are set to continue next week. Now, this even as protesters yesterday, mainly the youth and the Gen Z, are now pushing for justice for the death of one of the protesters yesterday following his death after succumbing to a gunshot by a suspected police officer. We'll be speaking about that much later on. But let's give you a look at us making headlines on the dailies this morning as well. And a look at the front page of the People Daily there says, House of Blackmail. Now, this is part of the intrigues there. And Treasury is warning to Parliament of cash cuts, is arm-twisting MPs to push the finance bill to another stage despite countrywide protests by young people. We'll be taking a look at that, a report on page 3, 4, 5, 6, as well as page 14 of the People Daily. A very in-depth report of perhaps the biggest nationwide protests staged by Kenyans in resistance to this Finance Bill 2024. And a look at the front page of the Daily Nation also says a youth revolt. Thousands of young Kenyans from across the country yesterday joined protests against the Finance Bill, demanding that the controversial tax plan be thrown out altogether, even after the climb down by President William Ruto. And their swelling numbers should send a message to members of Parliament and their parties who they warn they are watching. The story continues on pages 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 11. And that's the amount of coverage this story is receiving on the dailies this morning. We'll be giving you an in-depth look at that as, President William Ruto urges MPs to pass the bill. And they did yesterday in the second stage. But there is still much more that Kenyans can do, and we'll also be discussing then what happens should Parliament reject the Finance Bill in totality, as has been pushed by a section of members of Parliament as well. But let's take a look at the front page of the Taifa Leo paper as well. And the front page there says, Tafakari, all right? And it is time for a very in-depth debate and honest conversation. And it says vijana katika maeneo tofauti ya nchi waliendelea kutoa onyo kwa serikali kwamba wako tayari kutetea maslahi yao na kuandamana kwa amani. And that is one of the things that stood out in the protests in major towns countrywide. And it is the peace, really, so to speak, the peaceful manner that the protests were carried out. And we'll be taking a look at that in a lot more detail as well. But again, do speak to us on X at K24 TV. We'll be taking a look at us making headlines on the dailies in a lot more details. But let's take a look at us making headlines on the news. Now, despite the majority of Kenyans rejecting the Finance Bill and the Gen Z staging nationwide demonstrations, 204 members of Parliament have voted in support of the controversial bill in the second stage, while 115 stood by Kenyans by voting no. However, MPs, among them Mohamed Ali of Nyali, Sabina Chege and Njeri Maina, were nowhere to be seen. 22 of them nowhere to be seen. The number of MPs were absent while the crucial exercise was taking place. Here's Joel Chacha reporting on how notable MPs made a last-minute change of mind to shoot down the bill, which sailed to the third reading.
East, Salasia Peter.
That is a spoiled vote.
Spoiled.
Order, Honorable Salasia, you are treated as if you have not voted. Can you vote? No theatrics.
The most awaited moment by Kenyans was finally here after 2 days of a heated debate on whether Finance Bill 2024 will sail to the final stage, being the third reading.
The second reading of the Finance Bill 2024 voting, the ayes 204, nays 115, abstention 0.
It was notable, however, on those who initially supported the bill making a U-turn on what will be considered possibly as pressure from the people to vote against the bill.
First of all, I reject the Finance Bill 2024.
They include Nairobi County MP Esther Passari's UDA's Gitoga Mukunji of Manyata, and also those who defected from Azimio to support the ruling party, including Felix Odiwuor alias Jalas of Langata, Mark Nyamita of Uriri, and David Ocheng of Ugenya, among others.
We need to ensure that we listen to the population and what they're saying. This country right now needs to listen. We need to tighten our belts, we need to live within our means, and we need to address corruption.
A record 22 members were, however, not in parliament, with only one who was unwell informing the speaker.
John.
Key absentees to note are Mohammed Ali of Nyali, Sabina Chege nominated MP, Jen Maina and Jerry Kirinyaga MP, Donya Doris Kisi MP, Shakil Shabir Kisumu East MP, Bernard Kitur Nandi Hills MP, among others. This means that they are not on record of either supporting or not supporting the bill, what is translated as MPs avoiding backlash from either their voters or their party positions. Those who shut down the selling of the bill to the third reading have accused those who supported it of leaving Kenyans alone at a time they were needed most.
Those of us who have voted no have actually confirmed that there are still some members of parliament who understand the feelings of Kenyans.
Yes.
But for those who have voted yes, we leave it to the public to make their own judgment.
Yes.
Today we have voted with Kenyans and they have voted with the oppressors. And I want to urge the Gen Zs, Kenyans who are demonstrating, that the demonstrations must never stop. We must achieve the final thing, and the final thing is to ensure that the oppressor is out of power.
And after pumping a lot of sense on the heads of our colleagues, they could not listen. They could not agree with us, and looks like we lost the bill in a very draconian manner.
The ongoing protests by the youthful population have also been supported by various legislators.
So I am calling upon the government, come surely you have a fight with finance bill. We are the people who are here inside working on the finance bill. Sio hawa watoto walijitokeza tu kusema hawajafurahia. Serikali ambayo inalinda watu ni ile inasikiza watu.
Very unarmed protesters, but they are being tear gassed. They don't care. They have even shot one protester who has been admitted in the hospital. And we are asking, if this bill was favorable to Mwananchi, why are they pushing it down our throne?
And this battle is going to get out of parliament. We are going to meet on the street.
Niliona one of my colleagues akisema wanataka TikTok views. The majority leader in the house is a TikToker, akona TikTok account. All of us have TikTok accounts. Sasa tunaweza sema akiongea mambo ya house business, yeye anatafuta views. Akisema yes, is he looking for views in TikTok? So asianze kuharibu watu vichwa huko, kuongea vibaya.
A heated debate took place for 2 days, and next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, amendments will be moved as voting will be done close by close.
I want to urge the Generation Z to relax, as Kenya Kwanza government means well, and they will be the greatest beneficiaries of the proposed amendments.
IMF is playing a very big role in that is happening. And my good people, let me tell you, Gen Z is out, and I'm very happy. The only thing that I really agree with this finance bill is for the Gen Z to say that Baba should be left out of this mandamano.
When we have differed on the how, not on the what we need to do as a country in order to become a growing economy.
Joel Chacha, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Well, the anti-finance bill protests brought Nairobi's capital business district, central business district to a halt as thousands attempted to make their way to Parliament in the latest bid to push members of Parliament to reject the contentious finance bill. This was amid heavy police deployment in the city. Our reporter David Kagina covered the protests and filed the following report.
In what appears to be an escalation of the Occupy Parliament protests, which first took place on Tuesday, protesters, mostly youth, today filled the streets of Nairobi. Heavy police presence curtailing their efforts to access Parliament presence as members of Parliament debated on the contentious tax proposals. Kenyatta Avenue and Uhuru Highway for some time were deemed impassable owing to the number of protesters. Efforts by police, including use of water boozers, tear gas canisters and others on horses, did not appear to deter the determination of the seemingly resilient demonstrators.
What is the point ya kila siku tunashinda tukibadilisha finance bill? Mbona hatuwezi tumia ile last year? Why anataka kuongeza taxes? Huyo mtu kila siku hayuko ni mtalii.
Kama saizi mimi nakaa kwa mzazi na wamepandisha wakiweka hiki kitu nitaitoka kwa mzazi lini mimi?
Unaona dhao kwa supermarket huwezi nunua kila kitu. Sasa hii ni maisha gani? Jamani shida tu maisha itakuwa mzuri, maisha itakuwa mzuri. Itakuwa lini? Atuambie leo.
Tangu Ruto aingie. Si saa hii tangu aingie. Mamangu anaenda left right and center kutafuta ndo tupate kitu ya kukula. Lakini akiongeza hii bill like dai.
Sisi ni Gen Z, tunajua kusoma. Nadhani unajua wazazi hawasomi hizi vitu. We know what is entailed there in that finance bill. Ndio maana tunakataa. Kwa huko nadhani watu ni wajinga, everything in implementwa kwa parliament. We think we are not stupid. We are the next parents. Ndio maana tunatetea. In the next 5 years kwa sababu kwa kiti, si ndio tuko hapo.
In unpredictable moves, the groups regrouped and converged in many places at one point, making it difficult to control them. The police also having a hard time profiling the demonstrators. Unlike Tuesday demonstrations, most of those who turned up had no particular age group.
As at 5 p.m, efforts to occupy Parliament was still ongoing, with the police keeping off the demonstrators with tear gas canisters. However, the protesters have time and again retaliated with stones.
They chanted slogans, tried negotiating with the officers in person, adamant that they would achieve their goal. However, a barrier in every route leading to Parliament set up by security officers gave them no chance. David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, the National Treasury is now warning that the government risks losing 200 billion shillings if the finance bill isn't passed as is. As the bill continues to evoke emotions across the country, Treasury has hinted that general expenditure cuts will affect the three arms of government, including Parliament, the judiciary and the legislature.
The Finance Bill 2024 continues to be a subject of contention across the country. The government is likely to lose 200 billion if the bill does not see the light of day. The National Treasury has to this end written to the Clerk of the National Assembly proposing to cut 178 billion from the financial year 2024-2025 as rationalization in case the bill fails to sail through. The letter reads, and I quote, "If the National Assembly does not approve the revenue-raising measures contained in the Finance Bill 2024, there will be a likely revenue shortfall of approximately 200 billion. To remain within the provision of Section 40 and Section 50 of PFMA 2012 CAP, we propose the following measures: general expenditure cuts across the three arms of government." In his letter, CS Njigunandungu listed 45 offices contained in the executive, judiciary and parliament that will be affected by the cuts. In the list, the presidency will lose 451 million, State House another 500 million for all operations, while the Interior Ministry faces 2 billion cut on its security operations, and the defense counterpart to operate without 7.7 billion for security operations and modernization. Road projects currently ongoing will see a slashing of a whopping 15.1 billion. TVETs and TTIs will lose 800 million, while infrastructure for schools and school feeding programs 1.6 billion and 1.8 billion respectively. JSS teachers will get hit by 18.9 billion. Cash transfers of 5.5 billion will be lost, and Constituency Development 5, which is NGCDF, will lose 15 billion. Medical interns who recently negotiated for a package after months on the streets will lose part of their negotiated packs by 3.7 billion if the bill fails, as medical equipment services lose 1 billion and GAF will lose 1.5 billion. Other key losers in Professor Ndungu's list are the last mile connectivity that will be forced to contend with 14.5 billion. Fertilizer subsidy will lose 5 billion. Sugar reforms will get 2.7 billion and street lighting 4.7 billion. The CS also noted that should the Finance Bill 2024 be approved as proposed, the National Assembly can proceed with considering the Appropriations Bill. It is a letter that has elicited debate in the National Assembly.
First and foremost is to call the CS to order. To order from your chair. He cannot be seen to be supervising this house. In other words, actually he's trying to put pressure on this house to act in a particular manner. Yes. The CS of National Treasury, who is not elected by anybody, as far as I'm concerned, is purporting to supervise this house in its legislative role. Something that flies in the face of the Constitution.
Something must give in. If we reduce taxes that are proposed to be the revenue-raising measures to finance the budget that we have adopted, then we must find a way of either reducing the expenditure side, because if you don't do so, what you will do is increase the fiscal deficit. It is this House, Honorable Speaker, and I was hoping the Honorable Njuguna Ndung'u had pointed to it, and I see he hadn't, that we passed a debt ceiling in this House.
Day 2 of the Gen Z protests saw the youth come up with creative ways of braving the tear gas amidst the protest against the Finance Bill 2024. Young medics, nurses, clinical officers and paramedics are also in the front line, offering medical assistance to those who needed it. Here's Harriet Chimere, who reports that new and different apps are also used to coordinate their movement.
Second day of the Gen Z protests. The city roared with their chants on ground, all in efforts to woo legislators to shoot down the Finance Bill 2024. The new activism era showcased the young people's creativity. Case in point, they shield themselves from the dreadful effects of tear gas using fumigating machines as water sprinklers. Even petrol stations were not left behind in aiding the youth with water to wash away the toxins lobbied on them. And true to their word before the day's demos, the Gen Zs stood in different streets singing the national anthem that rang loud through their portable speakers as they had promised. Amid the 7 to 8 hour-long demos, the youth were also passing time through ball games, if not engaging in running battles with police officers. And like other demonstrations, the relentless youth have used social media tools to put across their grievances. As of 5 p.m., the hashtag Reject Finance Bill 2024 on X platform had 2.21 million posts, as it also reflected globally, fluctuating from first to second most tweeted. To coordinate movement among them since morning, the Gen Zs also used various platforms to disseminate information like the Zello application that gives up-to-date status. The app is that of a walkie-talkie-like, where the Gen Z send voice notes, texts, and images. Artistic props of different kinds were also in play, depicting their passion towards the rejection of the 2024 Finance Bill. Young medics and paramedics also offered their services at different points, including Jamia Mosque, to assist those who got injured or needed medical assistance.
So we're a group of doctors, nurses and clinical officers. We are located at Jamia Mosque. So this is our medical center for emergencies. We have at least 3 ambulances. So if there's any injuries, please locate yourself here, or call our hotline numbers. We shall reach you.
The demos are expected to continue nationwide, with the Gen Zs expressing their discontentment and grievances in their own unique manner. Harriet Chimea, K24.
Well, the protests weren't just in Nairobi. Thousands of Kenyans, especially the youth, turned up across the country to protest against the 2024 finance bill being debated by the National Assembly. In defiance of police reluctance to grant permission for the demonstrations, young Kenyans in Uasin Gishu County came out in large numbers, bringing the North Rift town to a standstill before police intervened later in the evening to break the demos. Similar scenes are replicated in Nakuru, Embu, Kirinyaga, Kakamega, Kisumu, Thika in Kiambu, Nyeri, among other counties, with a clarion call for legislators to reject the finance bill. Here's Timothy Simwa with the details.
Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, young Kenyans turned up to exercise their civic duty. The numbers were overwhelming and unprecedented since this is the hometown for President William Ruto. To demonstrate their apathy for political affiliations, post bearing UDS wheelbarrow emblem was brought down to the joy of the young protesters. For them, this is not about politics but their survival amid a financial bill they opine will impoverish them further. They are bold and unequivocal about what they want done.
In expression, si hooliganism. Vijana tuko unemployed, vijana tumesota na bado mnadai kutu overtax. Reason kama government bana.
Mimi sijaipenda maandamano, lakini hii nayo by force by fire lazima ili atoke, hatutaki ujinga.
Serikali yetu ni liar, ni waongo sana. Wanaondoa tax na mkono mmoja, wanaleta zingine na mkono mwingine. Kwa hivyo wanasema wametoa tax ya bread, alafu wanaongeza kwa mafuta shilingi 9.
The situation had remained calm at least until in the afternoon when police started lobbing tear gas at the indefatigable young protesters. In Nyeri County, the home of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, protesters came out in their droves to object the financial bill. Embu County and Kirinyaga too were represented.
Sisi kama vijana tumetokea na we are ready to take over.
Hii finance bill inaumiza vijana. Imetax kila kitu.
Things were not different in Murang'a County, as Thika in Kiambu County also witnessed similar events as protesters called out the national government and the National Assembly to listen to the voice of Kenyans.
Mnatufinya hata amuoni, ahurumia hata ule mama mwenye alikupigia kura, hata vijana. Mnataka tuende wapi? Angalia tunapandishwa mpaka bei ya pads.
We are going to be the next parliamentarians and we are going to reject every impunity. And to our president, you must go home.
Kisumu County also joined the bandwagon to send their message home, as well as Mombasa County, that for the second day running, youth came out to protest.
That I'm rejecting the bill, and any MP coming from my region, coming from strongholds, we will deal with you perpendicularly.
Vijana wamekasirika na wamesema we reject.
We are not interested with that financial bill. We do not want anything to do with it.
Nakuru County also witnessed thousands of Kenyans turning up to picket and add their voice to the controversial bill.
It's not just about sanitary towels. This morning, tumesikia Treasury wameambia MPs that they're going to cut the NGCDF. What are they trying to do to our education system? The health sector, that is also a problem.
Kakamega and Bungoma counties were not left behind in the western region, as demonstrators across the country sought to send a message to their leaders to listen to their demands.
When you're amending the bills, it's not just about amending. You should make the bill go down, all of it. You should make the bill go down, all of it.
Kama Gen Z tumetoka, tumenyanyasa kutosha, and this is the generation yenye sisi tunaelekea.
Despite the lack of central leadership, young Kenyans continue to stage mass demonstrations across the country with a little help from social media platforms where they have been mobilizing. Timothy Simwa, K24 TV.
Let's take a break here on New Dawn. When we come back, take a look at us making headlines on the dailies on this Friday, the 21st of June. The leaderless and partyless Gen Z taking much of the headlines in the dailies this morning. To speak to us as we analyze the dailies and that youth revolt, the hashtag is New Dawn. Do stay with us.